my friend, I want to ask you, have you been listening to some of my podcasts for a while and identified for yourself all the areas that you feel your business could be better in? Maybe you just are so busy you haven't yet mastered the working as much as you like bit. Or maybe you're just not bringing in the money, like you're struggling with the income, or it's just not enough. Well, it's time for us to have a conversation. In the show notes, there is a link to my Evolution call. If you're a dance boss and you are ready to take action, let's have a chat and let's see where I can take you. Hello and welcome, lovelies, to the Ultimate Dance Business Podcast. My name is Deborah Laws, the dance business expert. My passion is to help you turn your passion into profit while guiding you to work less and earn more. I'm super excited to share interviews with you that I know will inspire and motivate you in your schools, as well as my solo shows where I shall be sharing some great tips and strategies. So if you love the show, please do remember to review, subscribe and share it with your fellow dance boss friends. So let's get stuck into the business of dance. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited about today's episode because we're going to do something a little bit different. So with me today is a dance school owner here with me in the UK. And this is actually the first time I've interviewed a dance school owner. So we're going to have a little series of 2 or 3 of these podcasts. And I thought I would turn them into a little bit more of like a coaching session, potentially. But look at these beautiful, and those of you that are listening can't see this, but I have got the beautiful Kelly Marie with me and her dog. Hello, Kelly Marie. What's your doggy called?
This is Max. So Max, unfortunately, is joined to my hip. So he's joining the coaching session.
He's joining the podcast. He wants a bit of that limelight. So those of you that can't see Max, he's just a gorgeous, fluffy, white, gorgeous thing. But we'll try not to be distracted by Max and we'll just talk about the important stuff, which is the business of running a business in the dance world. So Kelly Marie, please share, whereabouts are you in the UK, and tell me a little bit about your school.
So my school is Azure Theatre School, and we are based in Marlow in Buckinghamshire. We've been running just over 15 years. We've got about 300 pupils. You know, a very traditional school. We ISTD, ballet, tap, and modern, and then we've got acro, commercial, and musical theatre. We do festivals and a biannual show. So pretty standard.
Yeah. And in fact, you just have literally described the school that I used to run. So we had very, very similar types of schools. And 15 years, well done for keeping going for 15 years, which also means you had to navigate through the 2020, let's not even mention it. And you're still here with a healthy school. So, you know, a massive congratulations to you for all you've achieved so far. So, you know, anybody listening that runs a dance school, you know, we already have an affinity because although we feel like our businesses are very personal and it's just us, actually being on the other side of helping dance schools, what I have discovered is that you pretty much all have the same problems, all have the same wins, you enjoy the same things that when they go well, it means a lot to you as it does for many others. And also, you know, have the same curveballs thrown at you. So I think there's going to be a lot of people listening today and kind of really being able to associate with what we might be talking about. But I think sometimes it differs depending on the size of your school, because if you think back to those first 2 or 3 years, 15, 14, 13 years ago, when you first started,
yes,
I'm guessing the things that you needed to know then are very different to the things that you know now.
Completely. I mean, I remember when I first started my school, sat on the floor of my living room writing invoices. I mean, I had that many pupils that I took the time to do that. So absolutely. So scaling up has certainly been a learning curve, and something that I continue to have to learn to do, because I think there's so much more that I could probably do that could be automated and make my life so much easier. But I do fall into that category of being somebody who actually sticks with what I know, because it's finding the time to make those changes.
Yeah, and that is bingo, pain point for dance school owners number one. And I didn't even tell her to say that, everybody. This is just her own.
Yeah.
Because I think you're absolutely right. We find a way. And sometimes that way is just something that's been passed on to us if we've taken over a school from someone else. Or, I mean, I'm guessing when you started your school and the way that you ran it, particularly in terms of like the admin and the office side, like how did you learn to do that? Because do you have a business background? Have you studied business?
So I was really fortunate. So when I left dance college, and I danced professionally for a very, very short time, because my skin was not thick enough for that part of the dance world. I actually got a job at a corporate company, and I worked there for about 5 years and worked my way through. So I started doing admin, and then I worked in events and marketing just as a junior. That time has been invaluable to my later dance career as a teacher. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it has helped me through things like the pandemic. It has helped me to scale up. And I'm not sure I would do it as well without having had that time.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually quite unusual. I mean, I'm really thrilled that you had that previous knowledge, the business knowledge, because for most people, I mean, I said that because 99% of the time people say no. So it's quite refreshing to hear that you
and I know it's unusual. I just had some years that obviously I needed to make some money, didn't know what to do with myself. And dance teaching was something I'd never considered, because of course I was going to go straight to the West End, and that was where I was going to stay. So actually that time that I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with my life, actually has become really important.
Yeah. And we're going to go on and hear all about what you've created in a second. So, I mean, for most people, they don't have any kind of business background. And so for a lot of my clients, the way that they run their school is actually mimicked and pre-learnt awareness and knowledge based on how their dance teacher did things. Because we all have to gain our ideas, our inspiration from somewhere. Whether it's because you studied business, you've read a book, you've spoken to somebody, you had a predecessor that mentored you. And so I remember when I started my own school, I just ran it like my dance teacher. Like, what did she do? How did she work out her fee scale? How many weeks did she, charge people for? How did she run her show? It was literally like a little carbon copy, maybe with the odd tweak where I thought, oh no, I wouldn't do that if I had my own school. So I would do a couple of things differently, but it was basically just copycatted from my experience as a student in a dance school. So what happens is we start out in business, and if we haven't got any actual business training, we just tend to go with what we think. And I call this phase, and this phase can last 40 years, a professional winging stage. It's like we get up every day and we just wing it, but become professionals at that. Like we get really good at winging. And most of the time winging it consists of a very long to-do list. So, I mean, going back to where you started and where you are now, you mentioned that, originally you were handwriting invoices, and now I'm sure you've moved on from doing that. But what do you feel you had to learn? So this could be really lovely advice, actually, for someone that's in the first few years. What did you have to learn that's enabled you to get from a small new business in its infancy to where you are now?
I think one of the key things was deciding what kind of school you want and sticking to that. And because I think it's really easy to be pushed by parents, and because you're so desperately trying to build up, and finances can be tight, that I think you can drift off from your original plan, which is ultimately not going to bring you any joy. and take you off course. So I think it's really important to not everyone will like what I do or the way I do it, but this is the way it is. And I think that actually that allows you to make clear decisions and people will come on board with you. I think if your direction is clear, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, actually, because what I think is so important is that your dance school is an extension of you and your personal values, because it's really hard keeping up a false pretense of something that you're not for many, many years. So if something is important to you, if you love a certain aspect of a dance school. So for example, say you grew up in a school that did a lot of competitions and a lot of festivals, and you love that and you have some really great memories, and that feels like an important and integral part of a child's teaching, then you're bound to want to create that again in your school and do it even better.
Yeah.
So trying to be a school that doesn't do any of that would just feel out of alignment with who you are and what you want your students to experience.
Yes.
And another version of that, I suppose, is, for example, if you grew up not doing exams, you grew up in a more relaxed recreational school, and then all of a sudden your parents are saying, don't you do exams? We want to do exams. Can we do exams? And then you go about trying to make that happen. And then you're like, but this doesn't really fit for me. Like, this isn't how I grew up. This isn't not what's important to me. But like you've just said, you feel pressurized to have to do that. So I think it's so important, like you said, that you get really clear on what you want your school to be, and what you don't want it to be, and that you stick with that. Because otherwise you get a lot of push and pull from parents, don't you?
And you panic as well. I think you see the school down the road. We all have lots of competition. And you panic because you see the school down the road are doing it differently to you. But after this amount of time, what I've discovered is there's place for us all. And there is place for the recreational schools, and there is place for those really intense schools. I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. But actually sticking to your guns, believing in what you do and delivering what you do in the very best way, I think will not only retain the people that you have, but you'll get new customers. And but there is a place for everyone and everything,
Yeah. And one of my favorite sayings is always be you, because everybody else is taken. So don't try and be somebody else. Just be more of you and do you the best you can. So that's really lovely. So Ellie Marie, you went from, presumably, did you start as a one-man band? Was it just you and some kids? How did you get started?
So while working this corporate job, a friend who I used to dance with taught at one of the big franchises and asked if I would like to cover. So I went and taught one day, and I fell in love, and was confident that this is what I was going to do, and this is what I wanted to do, and I just had to formulate a plan. So I took myself back off to retrain to get my ISTD qualifications, and took on a teaching job just at the weekends. From there, I then found another school, and then I was in a fortunate enough position that the corporate job would allow me to go part-time, so I could start doing that. And it just so happened, this franchise school, one student they didn't offer tap. One student said to me, or his dad said to me, would you mind teaching a tap class, like at the end of the day, in one of the rooms? Yeah, why not? By the end of that term, I had 20 children in that tap class. And so I bit the bullet and started, like you say, with those 20 kids, and away we went. But all the while, I was working for other schools just to supplement my income. And also during the day, so there a full-time theatre school, I started teaching there during the day, which I know is a lucky gig because there's not many of those around. And I was there well over a decade, ended up being head of dance there, and until my school, it was just impossible to manage both. So everything grew really organically, and I feel like I was very fortunate to have those opportunities because I realised not everybody is in that same position.
Yeah. But do you know what? I do hear an awful lot about the beginning story, like how their people's schools grow. And it's always so lovely, actually, listening to everybody's story of how their school grew. But I hear a lot. I just kind of fell into it. Like it just kind of happened. One day I was teaching and then all of a sudden, oh, it's now like a little dance school. And so many people say to me, I didn't even set out to have a school, but here I am, 10 years later, 20 years later, with this all-encompassing dance school that my whole life.
And a room full of tutus somewhere. How did that happen?
Exactly. And my lounge actually looks like the inside of a costume cupboard. It doesn't look like a lounge. But for for a lot of people, that is how it started. And I mean, I always knew I wanted my own school. I 100% knew I was going to have my own school, multiple schools. And so what happened with my story was I had an opportunity where a dance school many miles away from the school that I was teaching in full time was being sold. It was hard. There were hardly any kids left. The teacher had kind of almost retired and the school had dwindled down to almost nothing. And I was like, well, maybe that's a little seedling there and I could make a start. So I guess in a way, mine was a little bit more intentional. But for so many people, they say, well, I just, a friend said, can you put this class on? And I did it. And before I knew it, I had X number, and then they grew up and needed another class. And, it is literally like, a little seed that just somehow organically grew. So yeah, lovely. Thank you for sharing me your story. And so how did that turn into, I can't cope with this anymore, I'm going to need to build a team? Like, how many teachers do you currently have?
Oh gosh. So, and it's all change at the moment because of course we're first week back. And I've just taken on 3 more teachers. So I will have to have a little count up in my head. I think I've got a team of 7.
7.
7. Yeah. 7. And what and this is another point of change. So when I first started, like most of us, I taught everything. And then where, my passion was as I grew and I needed somebody else, I actually needed a ballet teacher. So that's where I went first. So I took on a ballet teacher who is still with me to this day, who's like my right-hand woman. And really that, so initially it was, because I worked at the teacher training college, so I was also delivering at one point the DDI and the DDE as it was then. I was actually able to find these kind of new fresh teachers. So they would,
and teachers that you trained as well,
which was great.
Yeah.
And I knew they were local because the college was so close to me. So so they came. Again, it was just sort of natural that they would come and maybe do their observations or assisting with me. And if I felt that there was someone that really fitted and we got on well, then I took them on. So that was the beginning of it. Now it's very different. So now, again, I'm in a position where actually I can bring in the very best people for each genre. So while I have quite a large team, given the amount of pupils that I have people who specialize in what they do. So my commercial teacher is an amazing commercial teacher and dancer. Same for musical theatre. I've got, someone who's really confident vocally. And obviously my ballet teacher just does ballet. And so I'm in that lucky position that I can do that and I don't have to do everything. I mean, no one wants me teaching them street dance. That was they were dark years me teaching street dance. So and definitely that has been another way that the school has grown because it's made us strong in lots of areas and people will come just for the commercial, for instance, because it's taught so well.
Yeah. And that's interesting to see how you've built that team and you've managed to build that team. But that kind of takes me on to a topic that some, not all, but some dance school owners really massively struggle with. So I'm sure you've got some great advice for them. And that is control freakism, which I don't think is an actual word. I've just made that up.
Yeah.
But I cannot tell you the number of dance school owners that are kind of self-confessed control freaks.
Yeah.
And really get scared about bringing other people into the business, whether it's teachers, whether it's administrators, people to help with social media. It's like 2 points that are often a challenge for people. One, but I could do it myself and save the money. And two, what if they're not as good as me? What if they don't do it as well as me? How have you overcome both of those objectives?
So one, yes, let me join the control freak line, because I'm certainly one of those.
Control freak club, yeah,
the club. Yeah,
official club,
firmly in that club. And I do and still have those fears and feelings. But someone gave me a very, very important piece of advice once. They were not in our industry at all. They said to me, working in your business means you can't work on your business. And so I'll give you an example. Last night, we're at my studio. We've got 3 studios running. I've got new parents. I've got parents that have changed classes. We're not used to the timetable, people turning up, all of those things. I've got people trialing for the first time. Now, during that chaos, had I been in a studio teaching, I couldn't have managed that. And I couldn't be there to answer the question of that new pupil. I also couldn't be there for that student who looked through that window and said, oh, I didn't know you did contemporary. I'd like to try contemporary. So being outside and managing that, actually, not only are you giving great customer service, you're supporting your team beautifully by making sure they've got everything they need. So you've got happy teachers. But also, I'm selling. I'm available to upsell. I'm available to my new customers, so they feel they know where everything is and they feel happy, and the environment is right. And I think and at the same time, once that has sizzled, I can walk into the studio. So I have had new teachers there, so I am watching their work. I do give feedback to my teachers and try to encourage them. I also, investing. I've got a student that I taught. She's just finished her degree at dance college. She's come back. This is what she wants to do. So I'm investing lots of training, lots of time, sending her on courses, because by building a great team and managing the team, we're only going to grow. We're only going to go away. Whereas if I was in every class, there's a limit to that. Even if I wasn't, now in my mid-40s and my knees don't work like they did when I was in my mid-20s, I only have so many hours.
Yeah. And I'm doing a little internal dance here. You can't see it going on because this is music to my ears, and I do so desperately hope that people that are listening are taking this on board, because the whole time, and I say exactly the same, my clients hear me say this day in, day out, multiple times, like a crack record. In fact, someone needs to make me a t-shirt. You can't work on the business whilst you're always in it. Mm-hmm. And I think, you have perfectly demonstrated that if you're in a studio and you've got new students arriving, who's out there to form those make those bonds and those new relationships? Who's out there to reassure that person that they've come to the right place and where they need to go? And you can have a receptionist, but it's not quite the same as the studio owner being there to greet new people and all the other lovely things that you commented on. And I think it's so important that people realize that the big shift that has to happen, the transition from I'm a one-man band and I can only be this size because I physically don't have any more of me left to give, the transition from that into right now, how do we grow and scale a business that I'm going to love in 30 years' time, is about that missing piece. It's that I can't continue to wear all the hats and do all the jobs. I can't do it on my own. I now have to have a team. And actually, that's a choice that we make, isn't it? Because I know dance schools equally that have been running for 30 years. It's one principal, one teacher. She teaches all the classes, does all the jobs, literally nobody to help. But that is purely by choice. And they know, those people know that it's not ever going to be any bigger. And they don't want that. They want it to be contained so that it's just them. And I'm actually all for that if that's done by intention. What seems a shame is when somebody is intentionally doing that because their mindset is stopping them from growing, when actually what they'd really love is a school where they only work 2 days a week and they're at home with their kids or their grandkids, and the school earns the money and they have freedom and they have income. Like, if that's what you really want, then it's about the process of learning how to achieve that, isn't it? So yeah, I really love that you mentioned that, actually. So what else? This is going to be an interesting one. What else do you currently hang on to, Kelly Marie? Bit of vulnerability here. What do you hang on to that you know you could outsource, but it just still feels so important that you do it? So I thought I would just share with you guys today the planners that I have produced for dance school owners, because these are flying out of Amazon like hotcakes. And if you don't have yours yet, then all you have to do is pop to Amazon and type into the search Deborah Laws, and all 3 books will come up. So the Ultimate Dance Business Planner I designed for you so that you had a little bit of a Deborah on your desktop. The planners are full of business training, tips, motivational quotes, things to do at the start of the month, things to do at the end of the month, ways in which you can plan out your marketing and your retention, and they are selling all over the world. So go to Amazon, grab your #1 best-selling Ultimate Dance Business Planner, and enjoy mapping out the growth for your studio.
Probably all of the admin things that, I know that I could be more efficient with payments. I mean, see, on these other things, it looks like, kind of on the face of it, but actually I do sit there and I do, as with the get my little banking app, and I do tick off all the payments painfully, and I do order my own uniform, I do all the festival entries, I do all of those things, and that is why I'm a member. That's my Control Freak membership area. So
yes.
it's that stuff that I know that I'm weak on, that I could get a lot more automated, even if I still, didn't have a person.
Yes.
I make every social media reel and all those things. And so what I really need to do is employ the way that I work at the studio. I know I need to do that with the back office, and I'm not doing that because I'm sat here going, I have a commercial teacher because I don't teach commercial, yet I'll sit and do social media posts, and I'm not great at those.
Yeah. And so, okay, let's get down and dirty then. So let's talk about this area. So do you have anyone that helps you with admin?
No.
So you're doing it all yourself. Do you still teach?
Yes, I do. I teach. I actually teach a couple of days at a college, and I don't teach regular weekly classes, but I teach lots of like festival privates and things like that at my own school.
Okay. So in terms of the admin side of running your school, how many hours roughly a week do you think you must probably put into all the admin?
So it varies depending on the
time of year, what's going on.
Now it's nuts, right? But I can easily, and I open the laptop and I can get stuck there without having a shower, without getting changed. And then suddenly, honestly, it will be the 3:00. Oh, I need to go to the studio. Quick, upstairs, shower, leggings on, out the door. I'm one of those. And if it wasn't for my partner, when I eventually come back from the studio, sort of 8, 9 o'clock, insisting that I don't open the laptop back up, I would. Yeah. So most of the time, and another bone of contention, which is just an extension of that, is my phone. And I'm sure lots of listeners now will know the impact of running a dance school on your relationships with your family, your friends, and your partner. And my phone, I only have one phone. I don't have a work phone and a personal phone. So wherever we are, I'm there. I'm on that phone. I am answering WhatsApps. I am And I'm
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of moaning that someone is sending me a WhatsApp at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, but I reply.
Yes, yes. And honestly, please don't beat yourself up, because this is not everyone, but this is a lot of people that are listening right now. And they're literally sitting or standing doing their ironing or driving to the studio, nodding and shaking their heads and going, yes, Kelly Marie, that's me too. So I guess, in terms of what you would love, so you know what your week looks like, even more intensely when it's super busy. What would you, in an ideal world, if you said, Deborah, wave a magic wand, please, because if I could create a life that looks like this while running my dance school, by golly, would my life look different? Would I be happier? My partner would be happier. What does that dream look like?
I think it would, what I'd like to do is be able to hold off and do my admin while I'm at the studio. So, because I do like to be there, I like to do those things that we said. I like to be there and manage and greet and what have you. And actually, if I could use those 4 or 5 hours that I'm at a studio, and I'm there 6 days a week, if I could use that time, that would be really useful, because then it will release me to actually live. I did quote marks for book, but to have some time during the day. But I just feel compelled to work all the time. I can't switch off.
Okay, so the first thing is the boundaries, then, isn't it? And that's whatever you choose for yourself. So maybe it is 0 work happens inside the house.
Yeah.
We have working days, working hours, working times, and that happens at the studio. The minute I put the keys in the door, that's it. And that requires a lot of self-discipline and a lot of boundaries that you have to set. And in fact, my husband and I did this very different, because my husband works for me full-time, and we got a lovely little house. It's not a huge house. We've just downsized, and we've got a kitchen, a lounge, a dining room, a small office. That's our ground floor. The dining room was my office. The little office was his office. So we had a sum total of a kitchen and a lounge. That was the whole floor print of our house. And we came down the stairs in the morning, and I turned right into my office and he turned right into his office. And we were there all day. And then we would come out and we would sit in the lounge at night and we'd carry on talking about work. And it literally was like, this is 24/7. We have no way of escaping this. So we decided to invest in our own office premises. Now we get up and we walk out the door, we get in the car and we go to work. And our rule is pretty much the minute we put the key in the door, that's it. It stops. We carry on talking about work all the way in the car, catching up on what each other's done. But when we walk in the door, that's home life now. And it has been a game changer for us. And very rarely will I get up, because now we do have a little home office. It's just for the home. I mean, we never even go in it. And when we do go in there, it's normally because we're booking a hotel or we're checking, something that's not to do with the dance business lab. So the first thing, I guess, is that. But in terms of actual reducing down your admin, have you heard me ever talk about £10 tasks, £100 tasks, and £1,000 tasks?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So this is basically identifying the things in your business that represent different levels of expertise. So the £10 tasks are the things that it's not £10 anymore, I'm sure, but you would pay minimal wage to somebody with a very low skill set or just an average skill set. Like if you actually create these tasks, you could probably give them to a 14-year-old. And it's the really basic everyday jobs that you need to do to run your business. I explain it a bit like, the gardener that pulls the weeds out. Like you don't have to have landscape gardener qualifications and degrees to weed the garden. So those are tasks that are the first tasks I try and encourage principals to delegate, to outsource, to get other people to do. You don't need to be the person going and buying toilet rolls. You don't need to be the person answering an email when someone's inquiring about a dance class. Other people can be trained beautifully so that our control freak membership doesn't need to come into existence, so that they can do that just as well as you can. Then we have what I call the £100 tasks. And these are tasks that need a bit more skill set. So these are maybe things like your web designer or your bookkeeper or a social media strategist that's going to help you run your ads. They're probably not things your £10 task person can do. They're either things that need your input or you need to outsource to someone a bit more skilled.
Yes.
And then the magic is the £1,000 tasks. These are yours. These are, nobody does this but Kelly Marie, because this is the stuff that only the visionary can do, the business owner, the creative person at the top. And they're things like creating your growth strategy plan for the year. What do we want to grow by? Which classes are we going to grow? What new classes are we going to put on the timetable? Where am I taking the school? How do we improve our comp team? They're things that need your creative input and kind of mastermind brain. You cannot outsource those to anyone. You can discuss them with other people, but they're your tasks and only you can do them.
Yes.
Going back to what you said about, not working in it, but working on it in terms of the business, in an absolute ideal world for anyone in business, you should be spending 80% of your time only working on the £1,000 tasks, because that's where you really start to make a difference. That's how people end up with colleges, with driving Porsches, having purpose-built dance studios, having, 800 kids, if that's what, you're heading towards. Because there's no way you can achieve all those things while you're still paying the bills and answering all the emails.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just that level of, you've built something incredible. You've got a fabulous team. Like, this school just sounds really yummy, but you're still stuck in it. You're pulling the weeds, you're sowing the seeds, you're pruning the trees, and you're the landscape gardener at the same time. And I guess for anyone that's listening, that's like, oh, I feel a bit like I'm in that same place as Kelly, or maybe you feel yourself coming towards this stage. It's not about how can I find more time? How can I find more of me? It's how can I use less of my time on the things that I should now be outsourcing?
Yes.
And when you get to a stage that you can do that, you either outsource because you've got other big plans and ideas and a vision for the future and your time needs to be spent there, or you outsource so that you can go, do you know what? After 15 years, I can have 2 days a week off and spend it with my husband and not be working and not be on my phone. Because the one thing that growth creates is generally more income. And the income and the money, because to me, it's not all about the money. It's about what that money buys for you. And that buys the freedom and the choice to work when you want and how you want.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So to me, if you said to me, Deborah, I've achieved this, I've got this is the school I've got, I love it, I'm happy, but my golly, I've got no time. The school is my whole entire life. And potentially it affects, things outside of the school, relationships, friendships. Then that next stage of growth for somebody in your position isn't about more kids. It's about, how do I now create the freedom and the choices to show up in my business when I want and when I don't want?
Yeah. Yeah. And we land back, don't we, to that same place that I was probably 10 years ago when we begin taking on teachers, that, of course, now the anxiety in me of, yes, I need to do that, but where am I going to find the money to do that? And so it becomes a risk. And I think that's, I'm sure, and I know that I felt that before with taking on teachers, but I have done it there, and it's that risk.
Yeah. And the thing is, what I say is hire before you need to, because when you get to a stage where you're like, I have no more of me to give, I am burnt out, I am overwhelmed, I can't sleep at night because my to-do list is going round and round in my head, my husband gets none of me, my kids get none of me, like I'm just stretched as far as stretch can possibly get, I need some help. It's already too late. It's already affected your relationships. It's already affecting your health. It's already affecting your anxiety. When you get to the stage where you're like, I need help, somebody help me, it should have happened 6 months ago, a year ago. So what I often say is, when you start to recognize this is happening, and it sounds a little bit like you're feeling some of these feels right now, this is when we hire. Because not only does that start to relieve the pressure a little bit. But also, when you hire someone, they're not hiring you and they're going to cost you money. Yes, initially you've got to find that money, but in a very short period of time, the time that that's now given you back enables you to work out how you can earn more money.
Yeah, of course.
And then they end up paying for themselves. A great example of this is we recently took on a VA, and the company that I went to, minimum 20 hours. I was like, oh, I only really wanted 10 hours. I feel like I wanted 10 hours for someone to just do some of my £10 tasks that I'm still doing, but I don't need 20 hours. Like, that's way too much. And they're like, no, sorry, it's 20 hours. And my VA is in the Philippines.
Yes.
And so when I actually looked at it, the amount for her to do 20 hours was actually still less than me getting someone in the UK to do 10 hours. So I was like, it's not horrendous, but there's a lot more hours than I need. By golly, did I fill those hours really, really quickly. And the thing is, she's now doing 25 hours, and will be full time at some point, because the work that she's doing has freed my time up. I am now available to do more of the selling, for want of a horrible, yucky word that it is, the marketing and the sales, which has already brought us in way more money than the wage I'm paying her.
Yeah.
So she's been worth her weight in gold. But you've got to get to that stage where you think, right, I need the help. I want the help. We're going to take that next little jump, that next little risk. And in doing so, that's going to help me get to the next level. Otherwise, you just stay put where you are for a really long time.
I'm writing notes. Writing.
I do believe you'll get to listen back to this. You can always go back. You can always go back.
I can't help it. I can't have a pen and a pad, just in case.
So that would be my little bit of advice for you, my love.
Yeah.
And I hope that's something that you might kind of go away and think, yeah, I feel like the tension is there, like the stress level is there. I talk about like an elastic band. I think when we first start out with our schools, and it is just us and we're a one-man band, you've got this elastic band, and the more kids you get, the more parents you have to deal with, and the more parents you have to deal with, the more kids you get, the more you probably need more venues. And like you yourself start to get more and more stretched, and we keep stretching that elastic band. And at times we may bring on teachers that alleviates that stress a little bit. But, a lot of people hear me say this fairly frequently: another level, another devil. Like, as soon as you grow, have new challenges. Like, part of your week, month, year, Kelly Marie, is spent managing and mentoring your team. That wasn't something you had to do when you first started out and it was just you. That's a whole other level of new stuff. And so that's, when you got to that level where you needed teachers, now I need to learn how to be a team leader, how I need to manage my team. How do I check that the standard stays the same? Every level, every time we scale up, we have to learn again.
Yes.
And that's why some people that I have that are in my coaching programs started with me 4.5 years ago, and they're still here. And the reason they're still here is because we've created so much growth for them. But each time, now I need to learn that new thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why I have a business coach. Have had since I got into the world of learning more about business when I was still running my schools. And, about 8 years ago, I thought, gosh, I feel like I am a professional winger. Who can help me do this properly? I've had a business coach ever since, because every time I have a great coach that teaches me things, helps me to get to the next level, all of a sudden, now I need help with the next level, which may be a different coach that helps me at that point. Mm-hmm. So it is one of those, the learning never stops, does it?
No, it does. It doesn't. And you're right. And all of those fears that you've just talked about, you're absolutely right. But it's hard to manage that, and you're right. I need to do those things. 100% right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, business growth goes hand in hand with personal growth, with mindset growth, and that can sometimes be the bit that holds us back. Your business might be ready to go to that next level. You might still have space on your timetable, or teachers that want more work, or empty places in classes. Like, there may still be growth that could happen in your business, but it's not been happening recently. I'm not suggesting this is the case, but for some people listening, it's not been happening, or you don't know how to make that happen, because although the business could quite easily grow, you need that next stage of bravery?
Yeah.
Am I ready to get outside of my comfort box again? Because growth inevitably is uncomfortable. And it would be for you, because we're looking at, gosh, I'm going to employ someone and I've got to find the money. And oh God, at the moment I can do it myself, even though it's not quite working because I'm working too many hours. And it is that the mindset and the personal growth has to be ready to keep up with the business growth too. So who knows? Maybe today's helped you a little bit with that.
So I really want to sort of expand sideways a little bit. So I really want to get into more of the drama and the singing and go down that kind of lambda route. So that this would afford me the time to focus on that and to have fun.
And very often, and again, everybody is different. Some people want to go into that next stage so they can take a step back, have a bit more time for themselves after all the hard work in the last few years. Some people want to go sideways because they've got another thing that they're passionate about, and I often help people actually to create a new side hustle, they call it. I hate it being called that word because it sounds like it's really unorganized mess, but want to go sideways in terms of creating something brand new that doesn't currently exist. There's no chance of that happening at the moment because there isn't time. A new side hustle, so as to speak, needs time, it needs nurturing, it needs creating, and that's not going to happen if you don't have the time to do that. It could be that you want to create that next level of growth so that the income is a bit more comfortable. You've created something amazing, but you're still not even earning minimum wage. Because for many people, when they say to me, I take about this much out a month, and I'm happy with that, I'm like, minimum wage is something like 24,000 a year. The figure you've just given me is like 16,000. Are you really happy with that based on the number of hours that you're doing in a week? Like, maybe we can just move that goalpost slightly. Let's at least get you the minimum that you deserve, So there's all sorts of different, what does that next level look like? So very exciting that your next level, you already know what that is. You'd already love to do that.
I would love to do that. Yeah. And I think that's what I have space for. I have managed to merge a few classes because they weren't full, and so I did some merging. So that gives me, I've got one evening where one of my studios is completely free, so that it's there.
It's ready. It's ready and waiting. So if you are in a very similar position to Kelly Marie and you feel like I'm ready for that next stage of growth and I feel a bit stuck, maybe you've got a new idea of something you want to do, or you just need to be earning that next little level of income, have more time, then come find me. Come find me in my free Facebook group, Dance Business Lab community, or reach out on Messenger. There is always help. I think that's the important thing. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're stuck. Whether it's with me, whether it's with another dance business coach or another business coach, there's always someone that's further ahead than you are that can help. And I'm very excited, Kelly Marie, for where you're going to take the business, what else you can create in the next 15 years. I'm so grateful for you sharing your school with everybody today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been great. Thank you.
So, my friend, I want to ask you, have you been listening to some of my podcasts for a while and identified for yourself all the areas that you feel your business could be better in? Maybe you just are so busy you haven't yet mastered the working as much as you like bit. Or maybe you're just not bringing in the money, like you're struggling with the income, or it's just not enough. Well, it's time for us to have a conversation. In the show notes, there is a link to my Evolution call. If you're a dance boss and you are ready to take action, let's have a chat and let's see where I can take you.